Imagine 18,000 warriors thundering down a mountainside, wings attached to their backs, screaming like demons from ancient myth. In just 20 minutes, they obliterated an army of over 100,000 that had been choking the life out of a starving city for 2 brutal months. This is the story of the greatest cavalry assault ever recorded. A charge so devastating it permanently altered the destiny of the Western world. Freeze this image in your mind, September 12, 1683. Sunrise creeps over Kahlenberg Mountain, illuminating a sight that will haunt the Ottoman army for generations to come. 3,000 Polish knights, their armor adorned with massive eagle wings, prepare to descend. Far below, Vienna's desperate defenders have been surviving on rats and strips of boiled leather for weeks. The city teeters on the edge of total annihilation, perhaps 24 hours from complete surrender. If Vienna collapses, there's nothing, absolutely nothing, standing between the Ottoman juggernaut and the vulnerable heart of Europe. By the time this story ends, you'll grasp how one aging king's all-or-nothing gamble, a besieged city's refusal to die, and the earth-shaking charge of winged cavalry warriors forged the most critical 20 minutes in European history. You'll learn why Europe's most powerful leaders left Vienna to its fate, what secret advantage made 3,000 mounted soldiers utterly unstoppable, and how a single tactical blunder by the Ottoman commander doomed an entire empire. This is where 3 men collided with destiny on that fateful September morning. King Jan Sobieski of Poland, Count Ernst Erdiger von Starhemberg of Austria, and Grand Vizier Kara Mustafa Pasha. One would be remembered as a legend. One would defy unthinkable odds and survive. One would forfeit his life for fatally underestimating the explosive power of desperation fused with unshakable faith. What made wings the ultimate weapon for cavalry warfare? Why would France stab Christendom in the back during its darkest hour? What convinced Kara Mustafa that victory was already his? How could starving defenders, reduced to eating vermin, hold off 170,000 professional soldiers? How could a single charge annihilate a 2-month siege in minutes? To comprehend how 18,000 defeated 170,000, we must rewind 2 months, back to when the most fearsome military machine on Earth began its inexorable march toward what they called the Golden Apple of Europe. If untold stories of history's most explosive battles captivate you, smash that like button and subscribe for more legendary war content. Hit the notification bell to join our community of history warriors. Now, let me transport you back to July 1683, when the deadliest army humanity had ever assembled marched toward Vienna's gates. The superpower of the 17th century. The Ottoman Empire in 1683 stretched across 3 continents like a colossus. From Vienna's gates to Arabian deserts, from Balkan mountains to North African coasts, the Sultan's authority governed millions. They represented the undisputed superpower of their era, wielding the planet's most sophisticated military technology, the richest treasury, and the most terrifying army ever fielded. Vienna symbolized the ultimate conquest, what Ottomans reverently called the Golden Apple. This wasn't merely Austria's capital, it was Christian Europe's protective shield. Vienna's fall would rip open the road to Paris, Rome, and Madrid. The Danube River would transform into an Ottoman superhighway, penetrating directly into Europe's vulnerable core. 3 men, 3 destinies, 3 commanders would determine Europe's survival. Grand Vizier Kara Mustafa Pasha, nicknamed the Arrogant even among his own officers. At 54, he burned with consuming ambition to eclipse the legendary Suleiman the Magnificent, who had failed to capture Vienna back in 1529. Kara Mustafa viewed Vienna as his personal pathway to immortality. He commanded 170,000 elite warriors, including the dreaded Janissary Corps, the world's finest infantry soldiers. Count Ernst Erdiger von Starhemberg, Vienna's iron-willed defender. At 45, this battle-hardened soldier would demonstrate that sheer determination could multiply an army's fighting power tenfold. With only 15,000 soldiers and crumbling medieval fortifications, he confronted odds that would shatter most commanders' resolve. But Starhemberg belonged to a different breed entirely. King Jan III Sobieski of Poland, known throughout Europe as the Lion of Lekistan. At 60, when most monarchs relaxed on gilded thrones, Sobieski still charged from the front lines. His Winged Hussars represented Europe's most feared cavalry force, but they stood 300 miles away when Vienna's nightmare began. The fatal fracture, Europe divided. Here's what Ottoman intelligence completely missed. Europe's political unity had shattered into 1,000 pieces. France, the self-proclaimed most Christian kingdom, secretly negotiated with the Ottomans, calculating that weakening their Habsburg rivals served French interests. King Louis VI perceived Vienna's potential fall as a strategic opportunity, not a catastrophe requiring intervention. German Protestant princes felt little sympathy if Catholic Vienna burned. Even Emperor Leopold I fled his own capital city, abandoning it to whatever fate awaited. The emperor's departure on July 7th sent psychological shockwaves rippling through Vienna's population. Imagine watching your supreme ruler flee while enemy war drums echo ominously in the distance. 80,000 civilians who lacked resources to evacuate confronted a horrific choice: remain and probably die, or flee and certainly starve. Most chose to stay, sealing themselves inside the city's ancient walls. The Ottoman war machine arrives as July melted into August. Massive dust clouds on the horizon heralded the arrival of the largest invasion force to threaten Europe since the Mongol hordes. The Ottoman host moved like a traveling metropolis, complete with bakers, merchants, and even entertainers for the soldiers. Silk pavilions, golden battle standards, and the relentless rhythm of war drums created a spectacular display of raw power engineered to break enemy morale before a single shot was fired. Kara Mustafa ordered his magnificent command pavilion erected where all of Vienna could witness it. 25,000 square feet of imported silk and gold thread. It functioned less as military headquarters and more as a traveling palace. This choice would prove to be his first catastrophic error, prioritizing personal comfort over tactical positioning. The Ottoman army surrounding Vienna on July 14th defied human comprehension. The Janissaries, slave soldiers trained from early childhood, formed the elite corps, 20,000 of history's finest infantry warriors. Their discipline became legendary. They operated as a single, unified organism. Their coordinated musket volleys fell like clockwork. Behind them advanced the Sipahi, 40,000 elite cavalry whose ancestors had conquered territories from Baghdad to Budapest. But the genuine terror came from their siege artillery train, 300 massive cannons, some requiring teams of 60 oxen just to transport, capable of hurling stone projectiles weighing 800 pounds. The largest, ominously named the Conqueror, possessed a barrel stretching 25 feet long. Mining specialists recruited from Serbia brought techniques that had cracked open over 100 fortresses. Egyptian engineers supervised the excavation of siege trenches that would eventually stretch 40 miles in total length. The detail that changed everything here's the critical detail that transformed everything. Kara Mustafa established his siege encampment like a permanent settlement. Silk merchants erected bazaars. Coffee houses served the exotic Turkish beverage Europeans had never encountered. The Grand Vizier's personal tent complex featured flowing fountains, landscaped gardens, and even a private menagerie. Such extravagant luxury bred dangerous overconfidence. Why rush when ultimate victory seemed mathematically certain? Vienna's pathetic defenses. Vienna's defensive capabilities were laughably inadequate by comparison. The city walls, constructed in the 13th century, had been designed to withstand arrows, not modern artillery bombardment. Starhemberg commanded 15,000 regular soldiers plus a hastily assembled force of 5,000 armed civilians. His artillery consisted of merely 300 guns, most of them light caliber. Food stockpiles might last perhaps 6 weeks under strict rationing protocols. The siege officially commenced with Ottoman diplomatic courtesy. Kara Mustafa transmitted generous terms: convert to Islam, pay tribute, and live peacefully. Starhemberg's response consisted of one word: never. The first Ottoman cannon roared at precisely noon on July 14th. Thus began 2 months of living hell. The underground war what followed defied the expected swift conquest. The Ottomans had conquered stronger fortresses in mere days. But Vienna's defenders possessed something that mathematics couldn't calculate. Desperation multiplied by faith equals miracles. By August 1st, the underground mining war erupted. Ottoman engineers tunneled beneath Vienna's walls while defenders dug desperate countermines to intercept them. Underground battles exploded in absolute pitch darkness, men fighting with knives and bare hands in tunnels barely 3 feet wide. Above ground, cannonballs transformed buildings into rubble. Below ground, men drowned in their own blood 30 feet underground. Starvation, the silent killer food, transformed from currency to distant memory to mythical concept. By August 15th, a single cat sold for an entire week's wages. By September 1st, soldiers boiled their leather armor to extract whatever nutrition remained. Children hunted rats through the rubble. Starhemberg issued orders that dead horses must be butchered immediately before the precious meat spoiled in the September heat. A Viennese mother's diary records the horror of feeding her children paste manufactured from boiled book bindings. But the true enemy wasn't outside the walls. It was time. Every dawn meant fewer capable defenders, less remaining gunpowder, more consuming despair. The impossible alliance forms. Then something occurred that violated 300 years of established military doctrine. On August 6th, Duke Charles of Lorraine began assembling the Imperial Relief Army 40 miles north of Vienna. Protestant Germans who despised Catholic Austria sent troops anyway. Every minor German prince who could scrape together a regiment dispatched it. Ancient enemies unified against a common existential threat. But the true salvation marched from an unexpected direction entirely. Sobieski's terrible choice, Jan Sobieski, had received Starhemberg's desperate message, "In the name of Jesus Christ, come quickly or we perish." The Polish king confronted an agonizing decision. His own nobility opposed assisting Austria, Poland's traditional enemy for generations. The march would force his army through mountain ranges considered impossible terrain for cavalry forces. Meanwhile, Vienna entered its final death throes. The Great Berg Bastion collapsed on September 4th. Ottoman battle flags appeared on Vienna's outer defensive works. Kara Mustafa ordered preparations for the final assault scheduled for September 12th. Mining explosive charges were positioned beneath the last intact wall sections. The Janissaries sharpened their curved yataghan swords for the massacre to come. Vienna had perhaps 36 hours of existence remaining. But hidden deep in the Vienna woods, death itself was attaching wings. The dawn of decision, September 11th, 1683. On September 6th, Sobieski's army linked up with imperial forces on the Danube's northern bank. 70,000 Christians faced 170,000 Muslims across a river of destiny. By September 11th, Vienna had 24 hours left to live, and the relief army stood atop Kahlenberg Mountain, gazing down at the siege sprawling below. Morning Mass, enemies praying together. Dawn broke on September 11th, 1683. Church bells rang throughout Vienna for what countless citizens believed would be the final time. But atop Kahlenberg Mountain, something extraordinary took shape. 70,000 soldiers knelt together for morning mass, Catholics, Lutherans, Calvinists, theological enemies praying side by side. Duke Charles of Lorraine commanded Germans and Austrians positioned on the left wing. Prince Waldeck led additional German forces holding the center, and King Jan Sobieski anchored the right flank with his Polish forces. The coalition represented military insanity. These armies spoke different languages, operated incompatible supply systems, and carried centuries of mutual hatred. Just one generation earlier, they'd been systematically slaughtering each other throughout the 30 Years' War. But mathematics doesn't account for momentum. Desperation had forged them into a single devastating weapon. The perfect terrain for destruction, the tactical geography, favored the Christians perfectly. The Vienna woods provided concealment for their approach. More crucially, the slopes of Kahlenberg offered ideal terrain for what Sobieski was planning: a massive downhill cavalry charge directly into the Ottoman rear positions. But first, the woods had to be systematically cleared of Ottoman outposts. The Winged Hussars, psychological warfare perfected. Here's what made the charge physically impossible to stop once initiated. The Polish Winged Hussars. Each hussar wore armor, weighing 80 pounds, carried an 18-foot lance, and rode a destroyer warhorse trained from birth specifically for combat. But the wings, those served three devastating purposes. First, the visual impact alone, imagine 3,000 armored angels descending from heaven. Second, protection against lasso attacks from enemy cavalry. Third, and most terrifying, the sound. When hussars charged at full gallop, the wings generated an otherworldly shrieking, like thousands of demons screaming simultaneously. Ottoman horses, having never heard such supernatural sounds, panicked uncontrollably. Men who'd faced cannon bombardment without flinching fled from noise alone. The first skirmishes. The preliminary skirmishes erupted at 4:00 am on September 12th. German infantry engaged Ottoman pickets throughout the woods. The fighting turned viciously brutal. No quarter asked, none given. By 6:00 am, church bells throughout the coalition camp signaled the general advance. 20,000 German and Austrian infantry began descending through the forest depths. Kara Mustafa's fatal mistake. This is where Kara Mustafa committed his fatal error. His subordinate commanders reported a massive relief army approaching. The Grand Vizier, lounging comfortably in his silk pavilion, refused to believe the intelligence. Impossible, he declared dismissively. It's merely a raid, nothing substantial. Continue preparing for tomorrow's final assault on Vienna. He ordered only token forces redeployed to face the reported threat. 4 p.m., the moment of truth. At exactly 4 p.m. on September 12, 1683, the killing began in earnest. King Jan Sobieski had waited, watched, and calculated meticulously. His infantry had cleared the final Ottoman outposts from the hillsides. The slope stretching before him was absolutely perfect, a steady gradient that would build devastating momentum without exhausting the horses prematurely. The Ottoman camp sprawled below like a banquet awaiting destruction. Sobieski rode among his hussars. These weren't merely soldiers, they represented the flower of Polish nobility, men who'd trained since childhood for precisely this moment. Their armor gleamed despite the dust of marching. War horses pawed the ground anxiously, sensing what approached. The wings were attached, wooden frames festooned with eagle feathers that transformed men into mythical beings. "Gentlemen," Sobieski announced, "today we save Christendom or die gloriously. Our ancestors watch from heaven. Let us prove worthy of their gaze." The king, at 60 years old, would lead from the absolute front, as he'd done for 40 years. 18,000 horsemen become one. The hussars formed into 4 massive wedge formations, each 1,000 men wide at the base, narrowing to a lance point of veteran warriors. Behind them, German and Polish cavalry formed supporting waves, 15,000 additional horsemen reinforcing the 3,000 winged immortals. This represented the largest concentrated cavalry force in European history. At precisely 4 p.m., King Jan Sobieski raised his command baton. 3,000 lances lowered as one unified motion. The front rank began moving at a walk, then accelerated to a trot. By the third rank, they'd reached a canter. The fourth rank was galloping at full speed. 18,000 horsemen flowed down Kahlenberg slopes like an avalanche of living steel. The sound of Armageddon. The sound built incrementally, layering horror upon horror. First came the drumming of hooves, 72,000 iron-shod hooves striking earth in rhythm, creating seismic vibrations. Then the metallic symphony joined in, armor plates clanking together, swords rattling in scabbards, lance points whistling through rushing air. But above everything else rose the signature sound of the Winged Hussars, the shrieking. The wings weren't mere decoration. They represented psychological warfare perfected through generations. At full gallop, wind rushing through the feathers generated a sound witnesses described as all the demons of hell screaming simultaneously. The acoustic effect multiplied exponentially across 3,000 sets of wings. Ottoman horses had never encountered anything remotely similar. They bucked wildly, reared in terror, fled despite their riders' desperate attempts at control. 4:05 p.m. Impact. The Hussar wedges struck the Ottoman defensive lines at 40 miles per hour. Lances specifically designed to penetrate heavy armor punched through men like tissue paper. The first rank of Hussars shattered their lances on impact and immediately drew sabers. The second rank's lances struck over their comrades' shoulders. The third rank fired pistols at point-blank range into the chaos. 3,000 winged hussars became a single organism of pure destruction. The Ottoman response devolved into immediate chaos. Elite Sipahi cavalry attempted to countercharge, but were swept aside like children. Janissaries, invincible in defensive positions for centuries, found themselves in open terrain, facing armored momentum they couldn't possibly stop. Their musket volleys were accurate, but utterly insufficient. You can't stop an avalanche by shooting individual snowflakes. The golden prize. Then came the moment that would echo through centuries. Sobieski himself, leading the central wedge formation, spotted the ultimate prize, Kara Mustafa's command tent, its golden finials gleaming brilliantly in the late afternoon sun. The Polish king spurred his mount directly toward it. 3,000 hussars followed their monarch straight into legend. Kara Mustafa's 90 seconds of horror. Kara Mustafa, watching from his luxurious tent, experienced the Ottoman Empire's first taste of permanent, irreversible defeat. He witnessed his elite guard cavalry scattered like autumn leaves. He watched his janissaries, undefeated for 3 centuries, break formation and run. He saw Polish lances approaching his personal pavilion at the speed of divine judgment. The Grand Vizier had perhaps 90 seconds to contemplate the magnitude of his catastrophic error before fleeing for his life. He abandoned absolutely everything, his war chest containing enough gold to fund a kingdom. His personal possessions. The sacred banner of the Prophet, worth more than Vienna itself. 20 minutes to change history forever. In 20 minutes, the Ottoman Empire's 300-year expansion ended permanently. The charge didn't stop at the command tent. Hussars and supporting cavalry poured through the camp like a steel flood tide. Ottoman soldiers, confused by conflicting orders and panicked by the winged demons, broke entirely as fighting units. Formations that had besieged Vienna for 60 days dissolved completely in 60 seconds. A Janissary veteran of 20 campaigns later testified, "The very earth shook beneath us. The sky filled with demons. My brothers who'd faced death 1,000 times threw down their weapons and fled." By 4:20 p.m., an army of 170,000 had transformed into a fleeing mob. The Ottoman military force that had threatened European civilization for 2 months ceased to exist as a fighting army in just 20 minutes. The slaughter continues. The rout became absolute. 170,000 Ottoman soldiers transformed into a panicked river of humanity flowing southeast. Elite janissaries trampled their own infantry in desperation. Sipahi cavalry abandoned their golden armor to flee faster. The massive siege guns that had pounded Vienna for 2 months were left loaded and completely abandoned. Slaughter replaced organized battle. Christian cavalry pursued without mercy or hesitation. 2 months of watching deliberate starvation demanded payment in blood. The killing continued until darkness made identification physically impossible. The treasures of empire. In the Ottoman camp, Christian soldiers discovered unimaginable wealth and unspeakable horrors. Hundreds of Christian slaves found chained in supply wagons, children kidnapped for forced janissary training, women captured as prizes. Kara Mustafa's tent alone contained treasures worth a king's ransom: jeweled swords, golden ceremonial armor, silk carpets requiring 50 men to carry. Most precious of all, the banner of the Prophet Muhammad, Islam's most sacred military relic, fell into Christian hands. The impossible numbers. The casualty statistics defied all military science. 48,000 Ottomans dead or captured. 15,000 total Christian casualties, a ratio that military theorists called mathematically impossible. The entire Ottoman siege train captured. 300 cannon that had threatened Vienna now defended it. Enough gunpowder stockpiled to last an entire year. Food supplies that made Vienna's starving citizens weep with overwhelmed joy. Personal moments define victory. Anna Hofer, a Vienna mother who'd fed her children boiled leather strips for weeks, discovered Ottoman supply wagons overflowing with rice, dried fruits, and honey. She collapsed to her knees, simultaneously crying and praying. Her 8-year-old son's first words, "Mama, is this real food?" Count Starhemberg, the Iron Defender who'd held Vienna through starvation and relentless bombardment, rode out personally to meet his savior. The scene became legendary throughout Europe, the skeleton-thin Austrian count embracing the massive Polish king while both armies erupted in cheers. Sobieski's first words, "I apologize, we're late." Starhemberg's response, "Sire, your timing was absolutely perfect." September 13th, the triumphant entry. On September 13th, King Jan Sobieski entered Vienna officially. The ceremony showcased choreographed humility. The Polish king who'd saved European civilization walked behind the imperial banner, insisting he was merely a soldier of Christ. His message to the Pope became immortal. Veni, vidi, Deus vicit. We came, we saw, God conquered. Vienna's children lined the streets throwing flowers, flowers picked from gardens fertilized by 2 months of buried corpses. Women who'd sold their hair for bread wept openly at Polish cavalrymen. Veterans who'd defended walls while eating rats saluted the Winged Hussars who'd ended their nightmare. Ottoman justice. The Ottoman retreat transformed into catastrophe. Without supplies, organization, or hope, the greatest army of its generation dissolved completely. Kara Mustafa reached Belgrade on October 10th with perhaps 10,000 survivors from his once mighty host. There, Ottoman justice awaited him. On December 25th, Christianity's holiest day, the executioner's silk cord ended his life on Sultan Mehmed IV's direct orders. The man who dreamed of conquering Europe died as all Ottoman failures died, strangled in absolute disgrace. The coffee legend, that's actually true. The coffee story persists throughout history because it's completely true. Fleeing Ottomans abandoned hundreds of sacks containing strange beans. Jerzy Franciszek Kulczycki, a Polish spy who'd infiltrated Ottoman lines during the siege, claimed the mysterious beans as his reward. He opened Vienna's first coffee house, teaching Europeans to drink the exotic Turkish brew with added milk and sugar, creating the Viennese coffee culture that persists 340 years later. The beverage of Ottoman warriors became the drink of European intellectuals. Epilogue, the moment that broke an empire forever. The hinge of history. The Battle of Vienna marked history's decisive pivot point. For 3 centuries, the Ottoman Empire had expanded relentlessly, conquering the Byzantine Empire, threatening Italy, dominating the Mediterranean Sea. After September 12, 1683, they never won another major offensive war in Europe. The empire that had terrorized Christendom began its two-century death spiral toward final dissolution. Austria's meteoric rise began that September day. The Habsburgs, nearly extinguished, became Europe's dominant Catholic power. Using captured Ottoman artillery and treasury, they pushed the Turks completely from Hungary within 16 years. By 1699, the Peace of Karlowitz confirmed what Polish lances had initiated. Ottoman retreat was permanent and irreversible. Poland's bitter betrayal. But Poland's reward would be ultimate betrayal. The nation that saved Europe received no territorial gains, no financial compensation, no recognition. Within a century, Austria, the very power Poland saved, would actively participate in Poland's partition and complete disappearance from European maps. King Jan Sobieski saved those who would ultimately destroy his homeland. History offers few greater or more bitter ironies. The myth that transcended reality. The legend of the Winged Hussars transcended mere historical reality. For generations afterward, European mothers told children about the armored angels who descended from mountains to save civilization itself. The image, winged warriors defeating numberless enemies, became a legend that inspired resistance against impossible odds for centuries after the actual event. Sometimes history truly balances on a single horse's hoof. When cultures violently clash, when overwhelming force confronts desperate resistance, when advanced technology faces unshakable faith, Vienna 1683 echoes eternally. The battle reminds us that historical inevitability is merely an illusion. Empires that appear eternal can die in a single afternoon. Here's the philosophical heart of Vienna 1683. When civilization stands at the absolute brink, ordinary people transform into extraordinary heroes. Starhemberg wasn't a military genius, just a man who categorically refused to surrender. Vienna's citizens weren't born heroes, just people who chose starvation over submission. Sobieski wasn't a saint, just a king who kept his word when betrayal would have been infinitely easier. The battle poses eternal questions. What compels men to charge toward certain death? How does faith multiply courage exponentially? When does stubbornness transform into heroism? Why do certain moments echo through centuries while others fade instantly? Vienna provides no easy answers, only the powerful example of what humans can achieve when alternatives become literally unthinkable. Desperation multiplied by faith equals miracles. But miracles carry terrible costs. 8,000 Viennese civilians died during the siege. 15,000 Christians fell, liberating them. 48,000 Ottomans perished for one man's consuming ambition. Each number represented a universe of dreams, loves, and possibilities permanently extinguished. Victory came absolutely drenched in blood that simultaneously blessed and cursed the ground.